In the middle of the forest, alarmed Joe runs for his life as a mysterious figure chases after him. Unfortunately, Joe passages and falls, allowing the critter to catch to him. It turns out to be a vampire, who incontinently starts drinking Joe's blood. At that moment, the sun comes out and the vampire dies and turns to ash, but Joe also burns his hand, meaning he's now the vampire. He starts moving by staying in the murk of the trees and ultimately finds a log pile, so it takes its mask and covers himself to also run into a chalet hard for protection. There he throws up as the metamorphosis reaches its end. Meanwhile, Stan wakes up in his lovely home and has breakfast with his parents. Suddenly a glass falls and his mama appears incredibly sick and the house in shambles. Also, his father grabs a gun and Tone deletes in front of his son. At that moment, Stan wakes up, revealing his factual house is not in a good state. His parents are dead, so he lives with his forefather Ellis, a former dogface that always yells at him and expects to be called Joe at all. However, Ellis pushes him against the wall to hang him as if Stan indeed tries to ignore him. He complains about youth moment. As Stan leaves for academy, it's shown that the chalet belongs to Ellis' home. Stan is riding his bike when the gang that harasses him at academy passes by, driving like maniacs to try to make him fall. Stan manages to dodge him, but the distraction causes him to crash against a police truck. Sheriff Dorney is veritably humane, but the deputy is furious and reminds him he's turning 18 soon. This means there will not be any further juvie or alternate chances. He'll eventually be suitable to arrest Stan for good. At the academy, Stan's stylish friend Dahmer hears the gang talking poorly about him and he insults them. This causes Marble, Pitt, and Ozzy to get angry, and soon they're pushing each other in the corridor. Roxy and Stan incontinently come to his defense and Stan nearly starts a fight, which is intruded by a schoolteacher who sends them to their classrooms. After class, Dahmer says that he's tired of this and one day he'll eventually snap and kill the gang. He also complains about Roxy, who used to be part of their friend group, but currently she prefers to hang out with the popular kiddies. Yet Stan still can't let go of his crush. Latterly at home, Stan hides in the garret to look at filmland of his parents, while hearkening to emo music and playing with his cutter. After cutting to forget, he throws the cutter impeccably at a target. Also, Ellis orders him to mow the field. When he goes outdoors, the canine starts barking at the chalet, but Stan doesn't understand it's a warning and enters the chalet anyway. As he looks for the field mower, he finds some teeth on the table. At that moment, Joe comes out of caching and tries to attack him, causing Stan to accidentally open the window. The burning sun keeps Joe back and Stan rushes out of the chalet to get the canine, allowing he just saw a crackhead. Stan yells at Joe to come out and, when he doesn't, he sends the canine after him. As soon as it goes outside, the canine cries and violent sounds can be heard before its head is thrown out of the chalet. An alarmed Stan runs into the house to snare a cutter, and Ellis comes to scold him, so Stan tells him about the canine and the meddler. Ellis calls for the canine to confirm it and goes out to defy the bad Joe, not hearkening to Stan when he says they should call the Bobbies. The old man is devastated to see his canine dead and gives his club to Stan before entering the chalet with a wood stick, ready to kill. After some twinkles of silence, Ellis announces that the place is empty except for the canine's body, only to also start screaming. The violence noises can be heard again and formerly they end. Ellis bursts through the door. In a bad state, Stan tries to help him, but Joe drags Ellis back into the chalet and closes the door to finish killing him. Freaking out, Stan uses the canine chain to lock the door as his forefather's blood leaks under the wood. Also, he runs back to the house and drinks Ellis beer, which generally he isn't allowed to do. He considers calling the police, but he's formerly on exploration and thinks they'll condemn him for this. So rather he drops the phone and starts working on duly sealing up the cabin so Joe can't escape and hurt others. That night, someone tries to open Stan's bedroom door, allowing it may be Ellis. Stan leaves his room but finds nothing on the corridor. The power isn't working and he hears Ellis brooding his name. He goes to check his forefather's room and is startled by Ellis yelling his name behind him, but there's nothing around again. Now the whispers come from downward, so Ellis follows them until he finds the chalet glowing and the voice turning deeper. He gets ready to open the chalet and the voice yells that Stan wanted him dead before the boy wakes up in his room. The coming day at academy, Roxy tries to talk to Stan, only to be intruded by Marble, who asks for help with his schoolwork latterly. Roxy knows that. Stan judges her from dating Marble considering his jest, but she admits she's only doing it to survive the last time without being wearied. Still, Stan thinks these opinions do end with High Academy and will follow her all her life. Also, he tries to confess what happened to Ellis, but they're intruded by Dahmer, which annoys Stan, so he leaves alone. As Dahmer leaves the academy, the gang starts affronting him again and Dahmer gives them double fritters. Furious, the triad starts chasing him through the forestland. At home, Stan notices the chalet door shaking and grabs a club before moving closer. Suddenly, Joe makes a hole in the door and heists Stan by the neck, allowing him to see his monstrous face. The sun soon starts burning Joe's hands, so it's easy for Stan to free himself and Joe goes back into caching. At that moment, Dahmer arrives bleeding and yells at Stan for leaving him alone. Stan interrupts him to explain Ellis and his canine are dead and that there's a monster in the chalet. Dahmer doesn't believe him and Stan agrees to show him, but first he grabs some effects to block the door hole. Suddenly, Dahmer starts hearing his name and when he comes closer, Joe appears at the door. Stan incontinently rushes to cover the hole and Dahmer helps him nail it down. Subsequently, Dahmer gets agitated because he thinks they can use the monster to kill the gang, but Stan thinks that's taking it too far and forbids him from committing any murders. That night, Stan goes to bed with a cutter and watches an old shark movie to learn their sins. There's burning them with sun, destroying their black hearts, and decapitation. Suddenly, a woman comes out from a mischievous bill on the wall and sits on Stan to do the dirty with him, but she suddenly transforms in an unattractive shark and bites him, only for Stan to wake up. As he looks for his shoes, he looks under the bed and finds the shark again, but this is an agony as well. Irked, he tears the bill off the wall. Also, he climbs on top of the chalet and starts drilling holes in the roof so the sun can hurt Joe, but there's still enough murk for him to hide. Subsequently, Sheriff Dorney comes to see Stan to ask about Ellis and Stan says he's out, which Dorney finds strange because his auto is still at the entrance. Stan swears he doesn't know where Ellis is and blames it on the old man's drinking binges. Dorney explains the family living up the road had all their rabbits killed, so the hubby went looking for the malefactor, but he no way came back. When she shows him a picture of the Joe, Stan recognizes Joe yet says he has no way seen him. A suspicious Dorney insists on driving Stan to Academy, and while he gets ready, she sees Ellis Club on the bottom. At Academy, Roxy worries about Stan's injuries, but the moment is intruded again by a nasty sexist comment from Marble. Stan comes to her defense and Marble tells him he can have Roxy, calling her sloppy seconds. Furious, Stan starts punching Marble and throws him on the bottom to constantly hit him indeed harder. A schoolteacher comes to pull him back and announces they're organizing a meeting with Ellis, but since they could not find him on the phone, they've transferred Dorney to bring him over. Stewing for the sheriff's life, Stan runs out of the academy to stop her, not noticing Marble trying to follow him. At Ellis' house, Dorney tries the doorbell but nothing answers. At that moment, she hears a noise coming from the chalet, so she goes to probe. She's startled by Commodity hitting the door rather hard, only to also hear Ellis' voice asking for help. She shoots the cinch, but before she can open it, Stan shows up. Dorney points her gun at him and he tries to tell her it's Joe in the chalet, not Ellis, but she doesn't believe him. Also, she opens the door to save Ellis, only to be jumped on by Joe. He bites her neck and raises her arm to waste her pellets in the air. Also, he rips her arm off before dragging her into the chalet to feed on her. To make matters worse, Marble suddenly shows up and starts beating Stan up. After many punches and kicks, he takes out his brass knuckles to finish the job, but he freezes when he hears a shot. It's Dahmer, who shoots Dorney's gun again to make Marble rendition. Stan tries calming him down, but Dahmer freaks out and threatens to hurt him too if he interferes. Also, he starts affronting Marble, forcing him to admit he's a funk before transferring him to the chalet. Stan's warnings are ignored formally again, and at first Marble moves typically, but he starts getting spooked when he sees Dorney's arm on the ground. Marble starts apologizing, taking the blame for every incident at Academy, yet Dahmer tells him to go into the chalet anyway. Soon they hear the noises of Marble being maltreated to death. Furious, Stan starts fighting Dahmer for the gun as he yells at him. Still, a laugh from Marble distracts Stan and Dahmer hits him with the gun, knocking him out. Moments laterally, Roxy wakes Stan up. Stan is nowhere to be seen and the chalet door is open. Roxy says she didn't see anyone around and starts freaking out when she sees the arm on the ground. Also, Stan enters the chalet to probe and finds Marble's brass knuckles on the bottom. In the murk at the reverse, he sees Marble standing, but his dead body falls and reveals that Dahmer is now a shark. Dahmer explains Joe is gone for now, but he'll be back laterally to end Stan. He starts monologuing as he comes closer, not minding when small shafts of light burn his body. At that moment, Roxy sees him and screams, so Dahmer uses the distraction to try to attack Stan, who incontinently stabs him with a stick and puts his arm under the sun to also push him down. Subsequently, Stan closes the chalet and leverages Roxy, only to be startled by Dahmer bursting out. He tries apologizing as the sun burns him to death, and Stan runs to cover him with a distance, but it's too late. Also, Stan tells Roxy everything and they start getting reading for the night. They put Stan's body in the chalet and get in the house, seal up every window and door, and start a fire in the fireplace. They also make stakes out of a bunch of sticks and gather as numerous shanks as they can find. Stan can't help condemning himself for the whole deal, but Roxy promises it's not his fault and they partake a kiss. When night falls, it's revealed Joe hid under dirt in the timber and now he's coming out. At the house, Pitt and Ozzy knock on the door demanding to know where Marble is. Roxy and Stan try to tell them to go down. Ozzy gets nervous when a figure appears in the shadow and tries to advise Pitt, who keeps on arguing. Suddenly, an arm reaches out and drags Ozzy onto the roof to feed him, letting his blood pour out. Pitt eventually catches on, and the couple has no choice but to let him in. At that moment, Joe destroys the power box. Stan thinks they should be safe there because they've sealed all the doors, only to realize they didn't do the garret. They start hearing noises upstairs, so they go to probe, unyoking the group so each can check a different room at the same time. Stan finds no meddler, but he does find Ellis' gun. Roxy is nervous as she checks under Stan's bed, but she doesn't find anything moreover. Meanwhile, Pitt finds an open window and rushes to close it, not noticing the broken glass on the bottom. When he turns around, a vampirized Ozzy growls at him. At that moment, Roxy is attacked and taken to the garret. Stan runs to help her, only to find his way blocked by Ozzy and Pitt, who's also a shark now. A spooked Stan rushes into a room and locks the door with a president to look for pellets while Pitt destroys the door with an dismissal. Once the gun is loaded, Stan puts it in Pitt's mouth and shoots both vultures at the same time. In the garret, Roxy is about to be beaten by Joe, but Stan interrupts him. He opens fire and the first pellet hurts Joe's arm. Still, he can't shoot again because Joe is fast and takes the gun down from him. Coming Stan lands the dismissal on Joe's shoulder, only to be demurred off. Joe removes the dismissal and jumps on Stan to start choking him. Still, Roxy grabs the gun and shoots him as Stan is dropped to the ground. The shot only injures Joe's face and now the gun is out of pellets. Joe intends to attack Roxy, but at that moment Stan yells at him and throws the cutter he left before. Still, Joe dodges it and the cutter lands on Rosie's shoulder rather. Next, Joe tries to choke Stan again and now Roxy gains access to the dismissal, which she uses to guillotine Joe in one nippy movement. Now it's all over. The couple puts all the bodies in the chalet and starts a fire. They wake up in the morning inside the auto and they realize they did not lock the box, where Commodity is moving to open it. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.